As a candidate for the mayor of Atlanta, as you're out meeting the public and campaigning and asking for their votes, how do you explain to those people the reasons for the recent millage increase in the city of Atlanta?
I remind them that since 2003, for a number of years, the city council reduced the millage rate consecutively. Years reduced the millage rate. The calculation that was made by the administration in submitting the budget was that in order to maintain services at the necessary level in the furloughs, the only way to do that was to increase the taxes. The better thing to have done would have been to maintain those tax levels previously, because clearly the analysis as to whether or not it was prudent at the time and sustainable in the future was not done. And so I wasn't there at City Hall. I did not see the background information that was used to make the determination, but it is clear to me that either you have the funding or you cannot provide the services. And to the extent that the city was not able to find the funding through savings, by wringing out waste in the system, or finding additional revenue sources, the conclusion was that the only option was to increase the taxes. And if you have a choice between this city being safe and increasing taxes, then the choice was made to increase the taxes.
Do you agree with that choice?
If there is no other way to fund those shortages, yes.
If you are elected as the mayor of Atlanta, can you lower that millage rate in the future over the next 2 to 4 years? And if you believe you can, how will you be able to do that?
I go back again to what happened over several years recently when the millage rate was reduced. Today, if those increases that remained in place, then we wouldn't have had the tax increase that we just had. In order to reduce the millage, it must make sense at the time in the circumstances. And you must have some sense that it's sustainable over a longer period of time. So I can't say here today whether or not I would reduce the taxes. It would depend on the circumstances. What I can say is that I will wring all of the waste out of the system, that taxpayers will get good value for their money. To the extent that when I've done that, basic services will operate more efficiently, more cost effectively, and the cost to provide those services should drop. It will drop. So with the cost being down, there should be an opportunity to reduce the taxes. But I would not reduce the taxes until I'm assured that the savings we've realized are permanent long-term, and that we're not going to have a yo-yo effect like we've had right now of reducing taxes this year and increasing them next year. What I will be committed to is sound public policy, including with respect to taxes, and I will not go through the yo-yo effect of what is popular today and what's not tomorrow.
You think the recent increase was more of a panic type situation than long-range planning?
Yeah, it was reactive. You're in a situation where you can't provide many of the basic services. You're closing recreational facilities, you're furloughing employees, you're closing fire stations, and crime is going up like you wouldn't believe, especially property crime. And you either find the money someplace else, or you increase the taxes to pay to end the furloughs and put the police officers, the firefighters, and other employees back to work. And so it's a choice between providing the services that are essential or not. You increase the taxes.
How will the city then find other sources of revenue in the future, given the declining property values that we have today? If other sources of revenue other than millage rate increases, where can we find additional funds to relieve the pressure on millage rate increases?
Well, I go back to my initial point first, and that is to say we deliver our services that we're delivering in the most efficient, cost-effective fashion. And if we can do that, costs will go down and we'll have revenues generated from the system itself. We must focus on applying to the federal government for whatever assistance we can get there. An example of that is the stimulus package, where we're now going to get, we applied for 200 new police officers. We ended up getting 50. So we must explore opportunities to get new money from the feds. We must develop a more cooperative, more collaborative relationship with the state. The state of Georgia contributes less to the city of Atlanta than most other states in the country that support big cities. It doesn't contribute much. We must make sure that we're collecting all of the revenues that we should be collecting in our system. We had the example of we fired the meter department personnel while they were collecting revenues to cover their own costs and with some excess before we put the new plan in place. If we had kept that in place, then we would have collected that revenue in the meantime. And now that we're not enforcing the parking violations, we're losing that revenue. So we must make sure that we're collecting all the revenue to which we're entitled right now. Again, the water, you got a 5% or $5, whichever is greater. We do $5. We don't worry about the bills over $100 in terms of collecting the interest. People steal water. We don't charge penalties for that. We must enforce the rules that we have. We must collect the revenue on the table that's available to be collected. And once we've done that and looked at the new revenue sources like the state, the feds, and then we look to the surrounding jurisdictions. And we look at how we're providing our services, and we look where there's duplication and where there can be consolidation of services to make it more cost-effective and efficient. And we consolidate and we combine wherever we can to reduce those costs.
You mentioned sources from the federal government, state government. Within the city of Atlanta itself, to make it more self-supportive, for lack of a better term, and to relieve a little bit of pressure on millage rates, and it seems like what other large sources of revenue would there be that you might increase to relieve that pressure on millage rates, such as sales tax, for example?
Well, sales tax is clearly, from the local resident standpoint, a better way to go because you share the cost. One of the problems that Atlanta has is that it has a 500,000 residents paying the cost of the infrastructure and the services, police, fire, all of those services. And on any given day during the week, it's servicing anywhere from 1.5 million to 2 million people. So a sales tax would certainly be a way, increasing it, to share that cost burden to people who enjoy the services without otherwise paying for it. There are other places that have income taxes, commuter taxes. You can explore those. Of course, that takes cooperation from the state to get that done. But I would be open to any new out-of-the-box, in-the-box idea that will help us increase those revenues from sources other than ad valorem taxes.
The next topic that will be discussed will be efficiency in government. Do you, in your opinion, do you believe that efficient governments have lower millage rates and inefficient governments higher millage rates in general?
You would think that efficient governments would have lower millage rates because the costs ought to be lower. It shouldn't cost as much to maintain them. But there are other things that you might be funding with a millage rate. Contingencies, you might be funding development projects as you're going forward. So it doesn't, from a technical standpoint, there should be less money required to operate a more efficient government, but it does not necessarily mean that the millage rate will come down proportionately.
Will the higher millage rates we have today and the potential for higher millage rates in the next few years due to the slowdown in the economy, will that continue to apply long-term pressure on millage rates, in your opinion?
To the extent that the economy does not turn around, there's going to be a shortage in revenues, and it's going to be a problem. I believe the economy is going to turn around. It's not just hoping it's going to turn around. And to the extent that it does not, and there's no new revenue sources, then the millage rate will continue to increase. My hope is that I will be your next mayor. We will wring out all the waste in the system. We will find those new revenue sources to help relieve the pressure on the millage rate. And the downturn economy has also impacted the sales taxes as well, because people spend less money. So you can't turn to that in this situation. We just got to find a new way.